Come on, you stupid piece of junk. Tommy Roberts grunted and tugged as he tried to free the wheel of his rickety handcart from a hole in the cobblestones. The sun had set an hour ago and he could hardly see the potholes. The fact that the street was more hole than cobble didn't help. The lamplighters hadn't made it to this area yet, assuming they ever came to this part of the city, which he doubted. Tommy hadn't seen many people, but the ones he spotted looked like they'd cut your throat for a copper penny. If his mother found out where he'd gone, she'd have a conniption. A chill wind slipped down the collar of his jacket. Brrr. It was only mid-fall, but the ocean air already held a damp chill. Tommy's thin coat and many times patched trousers did little to protect him. He should be home right now, comfortable in front of the fire, digesting a bowl of his mother's stew. Instead, he found himself in the worst neighborhood of the city, after dark, wrestling with a cart that should have been scrapped years ago. The cart finally came unstuck, and he hurried to catch up with his Uncle Hook, who hadn't bothered to slow when the wheel caught. Tall and gaunt, Uncle Hook was something of a black sheep in the Roberts family. His filthy coat was split at the seams, and his ragged brown trousers hung barely below his ankles. Worse than the clothes was the smell. He reeked of sour wine and pipeweed. For the 20th time, Tommy wondered what had possessed him to throw in with his uncle. The answer, of course, was a complete lack of better options. Since Tommy's father died 3 months ago, he and his mother had been living off their savings and what little she brought in patching sailors' uniforms. She'd insisted he keep up his studies at college, but every day it grew clearer that if they were going to survive, he needed to find work. That was easier said than done, and he turned to his uncle in desperation. "Are we getting close, Uncle?" Tommy asked. Uncle Hook looked back, the huge crooked nose that gave him his nickname thrown into stark silhouette by the light of a raucous tavern nearby. "Not far now, boyo. Lucky for you I had a job tonight. Been a slow week. I'm grateful for anything. Since Father died, things have been difficult." Not that his uncle had been terribly forthcoming about their destination. Given that they were lugging a handcart and digging tools through the city after dark, Tommy deemed it wise to keep his questions to a minimum. "I'm surprised your mum agreed to let you come with me. My dear sister and I ain't always seen eye to eye." When Tommy didn't speak, he asked, "She knows you're with me, right?" "No, Uncle. I haven't been home since I left to find work this morning." His yellow teeth flashed in the flickering light. "What did she tell you?" Tommy sighed. Lying might be prudent, but if Uncle Hook found out the truth some other way, he wouldn't take it well. "She said to find a job. Any job. But no matter what you do, don't go anywhere near your Uncle Hook." Uncle Hook barked a laugh and spat to one side. "That sounds more like my dear sister. Posh brat never did appreciate all I had to do to keep us alive. She always preferred to pretend the food and rent appeared out of nowhere. Why didn't you obey her?" "I tried to. I went to the butcher, the blacksmith, the chandler, and a dozen more after them. I said I could read and do math. I offered to do any job, but no one would hire me. I couldn't go home with nothing, so I came to you." "Shouldn't have told them you were educated. Most of them bastards are looking for people too stupid to know they're being given the shaft. I'm glad you come to me, boyo. We never been close as family ought to be. Always regretted that. Come on, it's only 3 more blocks." They set out again. Tommy couldn't help wondering why his mother was so set against his uncle. He was a mess, but seemed okay for all that. 2 blocks on, a voice rang out in the dark. "That you, Hook?" Tommy stopped just as a guardsman dressed in mail, a truncheon hanging by his side, and wearing a gray and gold tabard, stepped into a pool of light. His cheeks were ruddy from more than the chill. A thick red mustache covered most of his mouth. "Bloody hell, old son," Uncle Hook said. "You near scared the life out of me." "Working late tonight?" the guard said in a knowing tone. "Aye, ain't it always the way? You look chilled to the bone. Want something to warm your insides?" "I thought you'd never ask." Uncle Hook moved past Tommy and pulled a bottle out of the bundle of supplies in the cart. He handed it to the guard, who smacked his lips. "Many thanks, Hook. Don't work too hard." The guard ambled off the way he'd come, leaving Tommy and his uncle alone in the street. "Friend of yours?" Tommy asked when the guard had gone. "Hardly. George works nights in this part of the city, though I use 'works' lightly. Mostly he wanders around collecting bribes in exchange for not doing his job. We take care of him in the hopes that he's not replaced by someone competent." They set out again, but not for long. Only minutes after the encounter with George, they stopped again, this time in front of a wrought iron gate. Headstones were barely visible beyond the fence. Suddenly the purpose of the digging equipment was abundantly clear. "You're a grave robber?" Tommy asked. "Tonight, we are grave robbers." Uncle Hook retrieved the lantern from the cart and lit it. "They plugged a fresh one this morning. A mate of mine works at the local embalmer's. They buried this poor bastard with his gold teeth still in his head. Talk about a waste, but the widow insisted. This fellow was a silversmith when he was still breathing, and I've got a standing order for any skilled craftsman I can bring in." Uncle Hook pushed the gate open and strode through, looking left and right. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather ran through Tommy. After a moment's hesitation, the prospect of a gold tooth got him moving. He found his uncle's light easily enough. He'd stopped beside a stone with a freshly turned patch of earth in front of it. "Give us a shovel and we'll get started." Tommy handed his uncle a shovel and took one for himself. The quicker they got this done, the better. At least the digging was easy. The soft earth yielded easily, and an hour later they hit wood. Uncle Hook tossed the shovel up out of the hole, grabbed the edge of the coffin, and yanked it open. A pale, waxy face, 2 silver coins covering its eyes, stared up at the night sky. The dead man was dressed in a white funeral robe, his hands across his chest. "Damn the luck," Uncle Hook said. "He's been sealed. Can't sell the body now." "I don't understand." His uncle pointed out a trio of small, angular marks carved into the hollow of the dead man's neck. "The crows put their mark on him. It seals the body, preventing his soul from returning. The soul's knowledge and skills are what my buyer wants. This is useless to him. Get up there and get the tongs. At least we can collect those gold teeth." Tommy hoisted himself out of the grave, went to the cart, and found a pair of iron tongs sitting at the bottom. He grabbed them and hurried back. "Who are the crows?" "Death priests, they call themselves." "No, don't climb back down. Just hand me the tongs." Tommy obliged, happy not to get back in the hole. "For the right price they'll seal a body, making it so the soul can't return. Bastards charge an arm and a leg, sometimes literally. Most can't afford it. Lucky for me." "They worship the Reaper? I've never heard of the Demon Lord answering prayers." "I said they call themselves death priests. According to my contact, they're actually necromancers." Uncle Hook bent down and pried the corpse's mouth open. Gold glinted in the lantern light. "Here we are." As his uncle worked, Tommy's gaze darted all around. The temperature was dropping, he was sure of it. This close to the ocean, it shouldn't be so cold this time of year. "I think we should go, Uncle." "Almost done, boyo. We still got to fill the hole in." "Ha!" The tongs came flying up out of the hole. "Got 'em. Give us a hand out of here." Tommy leaned over the edge of the grave just in time to see the corpse sitting up behind his uncle. "Watch out!" The warning came too late. The zombie grabbed Uncle Hook and yanked him backward into its lap. They struggled, the zombie trying to take a chunk out of his uncle's arm, and Uncle Hook doing all he could to hold it at bay. All Tommy could do was stare in horror. They were too close to risk taking a swing with one of the shovels. Then again, maybe they weren't. Tommy grabbed his shovel and ran around beside the headstone. He reared back and drove the blunt steel edge into the zombie's head. It skipped off, but offered enough distraction for his uncle to get free. Not that he had anywhere to run. With more room to work, Tommy swung harder, slamming blow after blow into the corpse as he fought to keep it away from his uncle. They needed to crush its skull, but the angle was too awkward. At last Uncle Hook scrambled out of the grave. He clutched his left arm tight against his side. The zombie tried to climb up after him. Tommy slammed it back down into the hole. "We need to smash its skull. That's the only way to stop a zombie." Uncle Hook grimaced. "Keep it down there. I've got just the thing." Tommy stared as his uncle ran toward the cart. He better be quick. It took all Tommy's strength to fend off the creature's attempt to rip the shovel out of his hands. The zombie moaned and tried to climb out of the grave. Tommy slugged it back. The creature smashed its coffin to pieces and immediately started trying to get back up. Luckily, his uncle was on his way back, a short sledgehammer in his right hand. "This ought to do it. I keep it for breaking up stone sarcophaguses." "I'll do it, Uncle. You're hurt." Tommy could hardly believe he'd just said that. "No, boyo. I don't want you getting any closer to that thing. I got one good arm. I'll do it." Uncle Hook raised his arm and leaped into the grave. The overhead swing combined with the weight of his fall crushed the zombie's skull to shards. It fell and didn't move again. Tommy tossed the shovel aside and hurried to help his uncle out of the hole. His heart was racing and sweat soaked him from head to toe. pulled his uncle up by his good hand. As soon as he was clear, Tommy said, "Let me see your arm." "It ain't deep. Master'd only nip me." Even a shallow cut could be lethal. Zombies have a magical disease, appropriately enough called zombie rot, that they can spread through their bite. We need to purify the wound before it spreads. Now let me see. The gash on Uncle Hook's forearm was only an inch long, but the edges had already turned greenish black. Necrotic infection. That wasn't good at all. "Nasty," Uncle Hook said. "Hurts worse than a wound that size should." "That's because your flesh has already begun to rot. We need to find a fire, quickly." "The lantern? Too small. It won't heat the metal hot enough quickly enough." "Would one of those taverns let us use their fire to heat a length of steel?" "If you pay 'em, they'd let you piss in the stew pot." "Then let's hurry, and remind me not to buy anything to eat." The hiss of burning flesh mixed with the stink of rotted meat when Tommy applied the cherry-red flat of his uncle's dagger to the flesh of his arm. Uncle Hook had nearly bit through the strop he'd clenched between his teeth by the time Tommy had seared away the last of the corrupted flesh. Just to be safe, he applied a liberal dose of salt to the wound. Finally, they bound it with the cleanest linen strips they could find. Uncle Hook spat the strop onto the kitchen floor and groaned. They were alone in the inn's kitchen, having rented it for 15 minutes at the cost of one of the gold teeth. As his uncle predicted, the owner hadn't asked a single question when they made their request. "Heaven's mercy," Uncle Hook said. "I never felt such pain. How'd you know what to do, boyo?" "I took a semester of curses, hexes, and afflictions at college. Zombie rot is an affliction, happily one of the easiest to cure, as long as you can withstand the pain." Uncle Hook took a long pull on a whiskey bottle that came with the kitchen. "Damn lucky you had that learning. I don't fancy losing an arm to that thing." "You handled yourself better than some men I've worked with twice your age. Hell, old Saw near pissed himself in that same graveyard a month ago when an owl hooted. Still, I don't imagine you'll want to be going out with your uncle again anytime soon." "Are you kidding? I've never felt so alive. The fear and excitement was unlike anything I've ever experienced. When can we go again?" Uncle Hook gave him a side eye and then grinned. "You're my nephew, boyo, and no mistake. Won't be graves for a while, but I got business up the river in 2 nights. You'd be welcome. Just tell me when and where." Tommy could hardly believe what he was suggesting, but he also couldn't deny what he'd felt battling the zombie. He wanted that high again. "I'll let you know. One thing, though, best not mention any of this to your mum. She's not apt to look kindly on your new career." That was putting it mildly. "Don't worry, I'll think of something." Uncle Hook clapped him on the shoulder. "That's the spirit. Here." He dropped a gold tooth and the silver coins they'd taken from the grave into Tommy's hand. "You earned these. Let's fill in that hole and get you home before my sister skins us both alive." Tommy nodded, unable to stop smiling. When he left college, he never imagined a life of crime, but now that he had a taste, he couldn't imagine doing anything else. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you'd like to buy a copy of the short story you just heard, you can find a link in the description. Be sure to leave an offering to the algorithm by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Talk to you next week. Goodbye.